The underestimated enemy. Grand Admiral Vexthar stood before the massive viewport of the Zenithian flagship Eternal Dominance, his 6 eyes narrowed as he studied the tactical display. The holographic representation of human territory glowed a soft blue against the darkness of space. For 3,000 years, the Zenithian Empire had expanded unchallenged across 17 sectors, subjugating or annihilating any species that refused to bow before their technological superiority. Yet here they were, stalled at the border of this upstart species that had barely mastered faster-than-light travel 2 centuries ago. "Tell me again why we hesitate." Vexthar's voice rumbled through the command chamber. His exoskeleton clicked softly as he turned to face the assembled war council. These humans occupy valuable territory. Their resources would serve the Empire well. Strategic Commander Loxlina, her scaled skin reflecting the ambient lighting, stepped forward. "Intelligence reports suggest unusual defensive capabilities, Grand Admiral. We've been monitoring their communications and military movements for the past solar cycle. Their technology appears unconventional." Vexthar made the Zenithian gesture of dismissal, his primary arms sweeping outward. "Unconventional does not mean superior. Have they built anything that approaches the size of our dreadnoughts? Do they have planet cracker weaponry?" "No, Grand Admiral," Loxvina admitted. "Their largest vessels are barely 1/4 the size of our smallest capital ships." But nothing," interrupted Sub-Commander Krex, the youngest officer present. His carapace still bore the bright coloration of recent molting. "We've analyzed their propulsion systems, their weaponry. Primitive directed energy weapons, nuclear-based missiles. Nothing our shields cannot handle." Vexthar nodded in approval. "The Emperor grows impatient. 17 new colonies established within our expansion zone. Nearly 1 million Zenithians awaiting proper territory. The humans sit on habitable worlds they barely utilize." The holographic display shifted, highlighting the nearest human colonies. Loxvina manipulated the controls, zooming in on the frontier settlements. "There is one concerning report," she said carefully. 3 of our long-range scout ships disappeared while observing the human defense perimeter. No distress signals, no debris. A murmur ran through the assembled officers. Krex clicked his mandibles in agitation. "Sensor malfunctions," he declared. "Or perhaps they deserted. The frontier postings are tedious." 3 ships, Vexthar asked. "When was this reported?" "Within the last lunar cycle," Loxvina answered. "I ordered increased surveillance, but from a safer distance." Vexthar contemplated this. Desertion was rare among Zenithians. Their rigid social structure and evolutionary hive mind tendencies made individual rebellion almost unthinkable. But equipment failure was always possible, especially in the strange radiation fields near human space. "Show me their military deployments," he ordered. The display shifted again, revealing a scattered pattern of human ships. What struck Vexthar immediately was not their arrangement but their size. Tiny compared to Zenithian vessels. Their largest battleship would barely qualify as a cruiser in the Imperial Navy. "They've pulled back from their outer colonies," Krex observed, "consolidating their forces closer to their core worlds." "Surrender before we even attack," another officer chittered with amusement. Wise, but futile. Only Loxvina remained silent, her compound eyes fixed on the display, mandibles working in the Zenithian expression of uncertainty. "You disagree, Strategic Commander?" Vexthar prompted. "It doesn't match their behavioral patterns," she replied. "Human historical records show they typically fight fiercely for territory. This withdrawal seems calculated. A trap, perhaps." Vexthar considered. What trap could they possibly set that would threaten the Armada? Krex scoffed. "Our smallest battle group outguns their entire fleet." The discussion continued for another hour, but the outcome was predetermined. The Emperor wanted human territory. The military council saw no significant threat. 3 days later, Vexthar issued the invasion order. On the human colony world of New Horizon, Commander Ilara Hayes stood in the underground command center, watching the evacuation ships depart. The colony had been home to nearly 50,000 civilians, all now retreating toward Earth and the core worlds. Only her military personnel remained, and soon they too would leave, though not in the conventional sense. Last civilian transport clear, Commander, reported Lieutenant Chen from the communication station. Zenithian fleet has entered the system. Long-range sensors count 47 vessels, including what appears to be their dreadnought class. Ilara nodded, her expression revealing nothing of the tension she felt. 6 months of preparation had led to this moment. 6 months since first contact with the Zenithians had devolved from cautious diplomacy to thinly veiled threats. Humanity had encountered aggressive species before, but none with the technological advantage and sheer numbers the Zenithians possessed. "Status of the Ghost Network?" she asked. Science Officer Dr. Imani Okafor looked up from her console, dark eyes bright with excitement despite the circumstances. "Deployment at 98%, Commander. The quantum entanglement is stable, all nodes responding. They'll be in optimal firing range in approximately 30 minutes, Tactical Officer Rivera added. Ilara paced the length of the command center. Unlike the massive bridge of a traditional warship, this facility was modest, utilitarian. No grand viewports, no imposing captain's chair, just efficient workstations and the soft blue glow of holographic displays. "What's the word from Admiral Chen?" she asked. "The 7th Fleet is maintaining position behind Jupiter," Lieutenant Chen replied, "ready to jump in if the network fails." If the network fails. The words hung in the air, unspoken but weighing on everyone's mind. Years of research, astronomical resources diverted from colony development and infrastructure, all gambled on Dr. Okafor's theoretical breakthrough. "It won't fail," Imani said firmly, as if reading Ilara's thoughts. "The simulations were conclusive." "Simulations aren't reality," Rivera muttered. "No," Ilara agreed, "but sometimes reality exceeds our simulations, especially when the enemy doesn't know what to look for." She activated the central holographic display, showing the approaching Zenithian fleet. Massive vessels, elegant and terrifying, moved with precision toward New Horizon. Their design philosophy favored overwhelming size and firepower. The largest dreadnought measured nearly 5 kilometers from bow to stern. "Begin Ghost Protocol," Ilara ordered. Around the colony, buried beneath the surface or hidden in asteroid fields throughout the system, thousands of nodes activated simultaneously, each no larger than a coffee mug, containing technology that had been purely theoretical until Dr. Okafor's breakthrough 3 years ago. Aboard the Zenithian vessel Sovereign Claw, Sub-Commander Krex watched with satisfaction as the human colony grew larger in the view screen. Scans showed the settlement largely abandoned, though some energy signatures remained. "They fled rather than face us," he observed. As expected, Sensor Officer Trellixis adjusted her instruments. "There appears to be some kind of scattered energy field throughout the system, Sub-Commander. Nothing our shields can't handle, but unusual." "Defensive measures?" Krex inquired. "Unclear. The pattern is irregular, perhaps a sensor grid." Krex dismissed her concerns with a gesture. "Proceed with the conquest protocol. Prepare landing forces." The Zenithian fleet spread out, encircling the colony world. Standard procedure: establish orbital dominance, neutralize any remaining defense systems, then begin ground operations. The Empire had performed this dance countless times across countless worlds. "Sub-Commander," Trellixis suddenly called, her voice tense. "The energy readings are intensifying." "There." Her console erupted in sparks. Throughout the bridge, systems flickered and died. The massive engines of the Sovereign Claw fell silent. "Emergency power," Krex demanded, but nothing happened. The bridge remained dark except for the distant stars visible through the viewport. And then, impossibility. The stars began to move. No, not the stars. Something between the Sovereign Claw and the stars. thousands, perhaps millions of tiny points of light, moving in perfect coordination, forming and reforming patterns like a living constellation. A message appeared on the one functioning screen on the bridge, translated into perfect Zenithian script. You sought battle with those you did not understand. You will find what you never expected. In the New Horizon Command Center, Ilara watched the Zenithian fleet go dark, ship by ship. No explosions, no destruction. Just systems failing as the Ghost Network interfaced with their technology on a quantum level. All 47 vessels neutralized, Rivera reported, unable to keep the awe from his voice. No casualties on either side. Dr. Okafor laughed, the sound equal parts relief and triumph. It worked. The quantum displacement field completely bypassed their shields. They were looking for energy weapons, projectiles, not particles existing in superposition. Lieutenant Chen looked up from her station. Incoming transmission from the Zenithian flagship, Commander. Audio only. Put it through, Ilara ordered. The voice of Grand Admiral Vexthar filled the command center, the Zenithian language translated by their systems. There was something new in that voice that hadn't been present in previous communications. Uncertainty. Human command, this is Grand Admiral Vexthar of the Zenithian Empire. What have you done to our vessels? Ilara took a deep breath. This moment would determine everything that followed. Grand Admiral, this is Commander Ilara Hayes of the United Earth Defense Force. Your ships are unarmed, but we have temporarily disabled your systems. Your crew are safe. A long pause followed before Vexthar responded. How? Our shields were at full power. Our sensors detected no weapons fire. That's because we don't fight as you do. Admiral, what you're experiencing is our Ghost Network. Millions of quantum-entangled nodes that can phase between states of matter. They don't need to penetrate shields because they partly exist in the same space as your systems. Another pause, longer this time. When the Zenithian spoke again, his tone had shifted from confusion to dawning comprehension. These ghosts, the scout ships we lost, were not destroyed, Ilara confirmed. Their crews are safe, housed on our facilities. We merely borrowed the ships for study. Around the command center, her officers exchanged glances. The borrowing had been considerably more complex than Ilara's casual description suggested. A precision operation to test whether the Ghost Network could not only disable but transport matter. The success had been their first real hope against the overwhelming Zenithian military. You could have destroyed us, Vexthar observed. We could have, Ilara agreed, but that's not our objective. Humanity doesn't seek conquest, Admiral. We seek understanding, and now, perhaps, mutual respect. The final words of the Zenithian Admiral before communications were temporarily cut would be recorded in human history books for generations to come. We thought we understood combat, Commander Hayes. It seems we were mistaken. The Ghost Network. The Grand Strategy Chamber aboard the Zenithian Dominion had never felt so quiet. For a species evolved from hive-minded insects, silence was unnatural, uncomfortable. Yet as Grand Admiral Vexthar replayed the sensor recordings from the New Horizon debacle, not a single mandible clicked, not one claw tapped against the polished obsidian table. 47 ships, nearly 30,000 Zenithian warriors and crew. All neutralized without a single shot fired. Impossible. High Commander Zexkar finally broke the silence. His carapace, worn from centuries of military service, gleamed dully under the ambient lighting. No technology can simply ignore shields. The power requirements alone ruled. And yet, Vexthar interrupted. We have the evidence before us. He gestured toward the holographic display, showing thousands of tiny objects swarming around the immobilized Zenithian fleet. These nodes, as the humans call them, they appeared out of nowhere. Strategic Commander Loxvina manipulated the controls, freezing the image on a single node. At maximum magnification, it appeared unremarkable. A small metallic sphere with no visible weapons or propulsion systems. Our analysis suggests quantum manipulation technology, she said. Something we've theorized but never successfully implemented. The energy cost would be. She paused, mandibles working in calculation. Astronomical. Then how have these primitives managed it? Demanded Zexkar. They barely established their first extrasolar colony a century ago. Vexthar contemplated the question. The Zenithian Empire had conquered through overwhelming force and technological superiority for millennia. Their warships grew ever larger, their weapons more destructive. Evolution and engineering in perfect harmony. The strongest survive, the biggest triumph. Perhaps, Loxwina suggested carefully, their evolutionary path encouraged different solutions. The chamber erupted in chittering debate. Vexthar raised all four arms for silence. Explain, he commanded. Loxvina activated a different display, showing the comparative history of Zenithian and human development. Zenithians evolved from high species, strength in numbers, coordinated action, hierarchical structure. Our technology followed the same principle. Massive ships, overwhelming firepower, directed from central command. She switched to images of Earth's evolutionary history. Humans evolved as adaptable omnivores. Small groups, constantly changing environments. Their historical warfare reflects this. Guerrilla tactics, asymmetric approaches, distributed command structures. Are you suggesting their biology predisposed them to develop this ghost network? Vexthar asked. I'm suggesting that while we were building bigger ships, they were thinking of ways to make size irrelevant. The silence returned, heavier this time. Finally, Zexkar spoke, his tone frustrated. The Emperor expects solutions, not philosophical discussions. Half our invasion fleet is disabled, being towed back to our territory by these humans who claim peaceful intentions while demonstrating technological superiority. Vexthar clicked his mandibles in the Zenithian expression of irony. An unfamiliar position for us, isn't it? Being on the technologically inferior side. What do you propose, Grand Admiral? Asked another council member. Vexthar studied the frozen image of the ghost network nodes surrounding his fleet. I propose we learn. The humans have offered diplomatic talks. I believe we should accept. Commander Ilara Hayes straightened her uniform as she prepared to enter the neutral meeting ground. The space station orbiting between human and Zenithian territory had been hastily constructed for these negotiations, a physical representation of the middle ground they hoped to find. Nervous? Asked Dr. Okafor, walking beside her toward the airlock. Wouldn't you be? Ilara replied with a wry smile. First official diplomatic exchange with the Zenithians, and it's happening because we embarrassed their military. We saved lives, Imani corrected, on both sides. Let's hope they see it that way. The airlock cycled open to reveal the conference room. The Zenithian delegation had already arrived. 6 tall, insectoid figures standing with perfect military precision. Grand Admiral Vexthar was instantly recognizable from the strategic briefings, his exoskeleton bearing the intricate markings of his rank and lineage. What surprised Ilara was his size. Zenithians were naturally larger than humans, but Vexthar stood nearly 3 meters tall, his 4 arms folded in what intelligence suggested was a neutral posture. His compound eyes tracked her movement as she entered. Commander Hayes, he greeted her, his translator rendering his clicks and chirps into smooth English. The architect of our enlightenment. Ilara inclined her head respectfully. Grand Admiral, thank you for agreeing to these talks. When one encounters superior technology, one adapts or perishes. Adaptation seems preferable. There was a tension in the room that transcended the natural awkwardness of different species meeting. The Zenithians had come not as conquerors, but as what? Students. Defeated foes. The diplomatic protocols were unclear. As they took their seats at the specially designed table, accommodating human and Zenithian physiological differences, Ilara decided directness was the best approach. I want to begin by returning command access to your disabled vessels, she said, sliding a data crystal across the table. "This will allow your engineers to restore systems. We've already begun transferring your scout ship crews back to your territory." Vexthar's mandibles clicked rapidly. Surprise, Ilara guessed from her briefings on Zenithian expressions. "A gesture of trust?" he asked. "A demonstration that our words match our actions. We meant what we said, Admiral. Humanity doesn't seek conquest." Vexthar took the crystal with one delicate claw. "Yet you developed this ghost network technology. A purely defensive system would have been simpler." Dr. Okafor leaned forward. "The ghost network is primarily a communication and observation system, Admiral. Its ability to interface with your technology was a secondary application." "Explain," demanded one of the other Zenithians, Strategic Commander Loxvina, according to Ilara's briefing materials. Imani placed a small device on the table. It projected a holographic representation of a single ghost network node. Each node contains a quantum entanglement core. They exist partially in conventional spacetime and partially in quantum superposition, meaning they can be everywhere and nowhere, Loxvina said, surprising the humans with her quick grasp of the concept. "Exactly," Imani continued, clearly pleased. "We originally developed the technology for instantaneous communication across vast distances. Then we discovered it could interface directly with electronic systems. And eventually," Ilara added, "we realized it could temporarily phase matter itself." Vexthar's massive frame shifted slightly. "Our scout ships." "A test," Ilara admitted. "We needed to know if we could defend ourselves without destruction. Your empire has subjugated 17 species, Admiral. We had no reason to believe humans would be treated differently." The Admiral's compound eyes fixed on Ilara with an intensity that made her suppress a shiver. "And now you hold the technological advantage. What prevents you from doing to us what we have done to others?" It was the question Ilara had prepared for, the one that would determine whether this meeting ended in a new understanding or renewed hostilities. "Two things, Admiral. First, our history. Humans have had our share of empires and conquerors. We've learned the hard way that domination breeds resentment, resistance, and eventually rebellion. The cost is never worth it in the long term." "And the second reason?" Vexthar prompted. "The universe is vast and largely unknown. There are threats out there that neither of us can face alone. Allies are more valuable than subjects." 3 standard days later, Vexthar stood before the Emperor of the Zenithian Empire, the massive throne room designed to intimidate with its scale and grandeur. The Emperor's exoskeleton bore the gold and crimson markings of 10,000 years of selective breeding, his size dwarfing even Vexthar's impressive frame. "You recommend peace," the Emperor stated, his voice resonating through the chamber. "Not a question, but an accusation." "I recommend adaptation, Your Eminence," Vexthar replied carefully. "The humans possess technology that renders our traditional military advantages obsolete." The Emperor's primary arms clicked in agitation. "One setback, and you counsel surrender. Perhaps your reproductive privileges should be reconsidered, Admiral." Vexthar lowered his head in the gesture of submission, though his mind raced with the implications of what he had witnessed in human space. "Not surrender, Your Eminence. Evolution. The humans offer technological exchange. Medicine, sustainable energy production, terraforming techniques. In exchange for what?" The Emperor interrupted. "Peace, recognized borders, and assistance with the situation developing in the Andromeda Arm." This caught the Emperor's attention. The Zenithian Empire had been monitoring unusual energy signatures from that region for decades, though no expeditionary force had been dispatched yet. "What situation?" Vexthar produced a data crystal, different from the one Hayes had given him. The humans call them the Void Collective. Another spacefaring species that appears to consume energy directly from stars. They've already destabilized 3 suns in the outer reaches of human territory. The Emperor's compound eyes narrowed as he processed this information. "And these humans believe we should form an alliance against this threat." They believe diversity of approach creates strategic advantage, Your Eminence. Their ghost network technology combined with our offensive capabilities would create a defense neither could achieve alone. The throne room fell silent as the Emperor contemplated. For a species that had known only conquest for millennia, the concept of true alliance was foreign, almost incomprehensible. "Show me this human commander," the Emperor finally ordered. "The one who defeated your fleet without destruction." Vexthar activated another holographic display, showing Commander Hayes during their negotiations. The Emperor studied the small, soft-bodied creature with evident curiosity. "They are so fragile-looking," he observed. "Yet their thinking is anything but, Your Eminence. They adapted to overcome our advantages rather than trying to match them. It is evolutionary." The Emperor's mandibles worked slowly, the Zenithian expression of deep thought. "Perhaps there is wisdom in this approach. Prepare a formal diplomatic response. We will explore this alliance possibility." As Vexthar left the throne room, he reflected on the human's ghost network, how it represented a fundamentally different understanding of power. Not the overwhelming force of a massive warship, but the distributed, adaptable presence of countless small nodes working in perfect harmony. Perhaps, he thought, the Zenithian Empire might learn something from these humans after all. 6 months later, Commander Ilara Hayes stood on the observation deck of the newly commissioned Joint Research Facility orbiting the neutral zone. The massive structure represented the first tangible outcome of the Zenithian Human Cooperative Agreement. "Quite a view," said Dr. Okafor, joining her at the viewport. Beyond the reinforced transparent aluminum, the stars shone brilliantly against the blackness of space. In the distance, a Zenithian dreadnought maintained station alongside 3 human vessels, a sight that would have been unimaginable a year earlier. "I still can't believe it worked," Ilara admitted. "When Admiral Chen first proposed using the Ghost Network as a defensive system, I thought he was overreaching. And now we're teaching Zenithian scientists quantum entanglement theory while they help us improve our conventional shields." Imani shook her head in wonderment. "Though I think Strategic Commander Loxvina understood the principles before I finished explaining them." Ilara smiled. "She's been instrumental in convincing their military council to accept the alliance. Apparently, she had suspicions about human capabilities from the beginning." A soft chime announced another presence on the observation deck. They turned to see Grand Admiral Vexthar tucking through the oversized doorway, designed to accommodate Zenithian physiology. "Commander Hayes, Dr. Okafor," he greeted them, his translator rendering his speech flawlessly. "The first prototype of the integrated defense system is ready for testing." The integrated defense system, a combination of Zenithian shield technology and human ghost network nodes. If successful, it would create a defensive capability unlike anything either species had developed independently. "Early reports from the Andromeda arm?" Ilara asked as they walked together toward the research lab. "Concerning," Vexthar admitted. "The Void Collective has accelerated their stellar consumption. 3 more systems lost in the past month." "Then we'd better make sure this works," Imani said grimly. As they entered the lab, Ilara reflected on the strange path that had led them here. What had begun as a desperate defensive measure against an overwhelming force had evolved into something none of them could have predicted. A genuine alliance between radically different species. "You know," Vexthar said quietly as they watched Zenithian and human scientists working side by side, "in all our history, the Zenithian Empire never encountered a species that made us question our fundamental understanding of combat." "And in all our history," Ilara replied, "humanity never expected our greatest strength would be learning to exist in 2 states simultaneously, like our ghost network, both warriors and peacekeepers." Vexthar's mandibles clicked in what Ilara now recognized as the Zenithian expression of agreement. "Perhaps that is the greatest lesson your ghost network has taught us, Commander. Not that bigger isn't always better, but that true strength comes from adaptability." As the integrated defense system came online for its first test, Ilara couldn't help but feel a sense of profound hope. The Void Collective presented a threat greater than either humans or Zenithians could face alone. But together, combining the best aspects of both their approaches, they stood a fighting chance. And that, perhaps, was the most human solution of all.